Hello, my name is Zachariah Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming. Today we are bringing to you a first impressions video that I am super excited about, and that is Bleeding Edge, the 4v4 melee fighter from Ninja Theory. I got to play in the beta this weekend, and I want to tell you guys all about it if you didn't get to. But before we get into that, just a quick disclaimer. The illness that, if you've watched any of my previous videos, has somehow decided to nest in my larynx is still around, and you can tell because I still sound kind of terrible. So I'm sorry about that ahead of time. Okay, so let's go over it. Bleeding Edge. The Bleeding Edge beta was for anybody who had Games Pass or had pre-ordered the game. It was a closed beta, and it ran from this Friday, Valentine's Day, at 1 p.m., and it's still going on actually until the end of today, which would be Sunday, the 16th, all the way until tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. if you want to stay up super late. And what is Bleeding Edge? Bleeding Edge is 4v4, and it's kind of a hero shooter, but instead of a shooter, it's a meleeer. A good comparison for the look and feel, the look of it would be like Overwatch, kind of, but instead of first-person shooter perspective, you're at a third person, and instead of more of a shooter, it's more of close range. So there are some ranged characters, and we're going to talk about them. Whether or not this is all the game has to offer, this specific beta offered two different scenario modes to fight in. One was a very standard multiplayer type domination where a zone becomes active, you claim the zone, and you try and hold the zone from the other team. The longer you hold the zones, the longer you get points. The other mode was Power Cell Collection, which was a little bit different from the things that I had normally seen. Basically, these power cells would randomly spawn across the map. You'd have to destroy their canisters and collect them. Then you'd have to hold on to them until a delivery mode started. And the delivery mode, you'd then have to run to a delivery spot. You'd have to stand still on the delivery spot long enough for your power cells to be delivered. And then you'd get points based on that. One thing that is nice is both modes offer points for just taking out enemy opponents. So even if you're not scoring directly on those, you're getting bonus points for actually taking out opponent players. Now, unlike a lot of other games like this game is super heavily put on the team. This game is all about team mechanics. With that, they have 3 different classes to pick from. I will say the amount they had in each is unbalanced. There's 5 DPS characters, which are just your basic attacker characters. They do a lot of damage. They don't necessarily take a lot of damage. They move fairly well. Then you had the support characters. There was 3 of them. And the support characters are integral to every team. Every team has to have at least one, and they are healers as well as, buffers and debuffers. Then you have your tank class, which are just big, meaty, and slow. They're just made to go in and absorb damage and dish out a fair amount themselves. You only had 3 of those as well. And there was also a fair amount of customization in the backstage, which I enjoy, and it's not just cosmetic. You can buy these things called mods and have 3 of them equipped on your character at any time. Those mods boost their abilities and base attacks and base stats. In addition, but don't worry about the people who are really above you getting too much. You automatically start with 3. They're automatically decent. And so everybody has at least somewhat of an equal footing. Of course, a more experienced player will have more of those mods and be able to tailor their character to their playstyle, which gives them a little bit of an advantage. But let's face it, if that person's played that much longer, they should have a little bit of advantage. But that advantage is by no means game-breaking. Now, I want to warn you about something before we get into the excitement factors and the big concerns. That something is, I had a hard time comparing this game to other games that I had played because it's unique, and that's a good thing, but still, I wanted kind of a frame of reference point. A lot of people have compared this game to Overwatch. Now, I must be honest, I have played Overwatch, but a very small amount. I don't even think I've played an hour of Overwatch, just enough to see what it's about and kind of move on, because Overwatch was not my thing. I will say, however, I have put a lot of hours into Ubisoft's gritty medieval fighter For Honor, and I gotta say, these two games are very comparable for me. obviously not an aesthetic, but in the way they play, there's a lot that they kind of borrow from each other, and at the same time, there's a lot of differences. So, if you've played For Honor before, I'm going to be using that as kind of a reference point. Again, I would use Overwatch, but I haven't played enough of it for that to be fair. So, the big thing about those two games is I'm going to talk about the big difference first. Now, in For Honor, it is a very heavy combo system. While you can get pieces of armor and perks that do kind of change your stats, they don't change them in any real meaningful way. And it's more about learning the combos of each different character class and executing those combos to the best of your abilities with extremely well-timed parries. So that is completely different from this game, Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge is not about the technique, because you don't really have a lot of techniques in this game. You have one main combo, and if you're a range character, you don't even have that. You just have a main attack that you can do from long range. You have 3 abilities that are active and 1 passive. The passive is just always on and always helping you. And then the active abilities are about when to use them in conjunction. And that does have a little bit of technique, but really, this game is not about how you engage, it's about when you engage. What I mean by that is, and again, I have not played enough of Overwatch, it might be like this, but I have never personally played a game that is so reliant on the team mechanics. We're actually going to talk about that both in the excitement factors and the concerns. But the thing about it is, if you go into a battle, you have to know how many of them are grouped up. You have to know who's with you. You have to know how many are with you, how many are with them. You have to know what abilities are on cooldown for you and what aren't. Because the fight itself is really decided when you decide to take on the fight. If you go in and there's 3 of them and it's one of you, you're going to lose. Hands down, there's no way around it. If you go in and you're fighting with 3 of you, you're going to win. There are ways around that, little loopholes, but again, the technique is all on when you engage the opponent. With For Honor, you go in, you're 4v4, that's fine, but you don't need that much communication. I mean, sure, if players are really stupid, they can lose you the match, but at the same time, you can be very self-sufficient in the game if you're good at it. In this, you cannot. If you're on a crappy team, you're going to lose. If your team drops out, you're going to lose. And that's a little bit frustrating. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too. So, but before we get into that, let's go into our excitement factors. These are going to be the things that are making me excited to play this game, making me excited to see its full release. Again, I'm not going to be overtly negative on this because it's a first impressions video and this is a beta, so this isn't indicative of the final product, but still, with the concerns, I want to point out things that make me a little bit nervous to play. So my first excitement factor has got to be the uniqueness of this. This game is very unique, from the character designs to the aesthetic of it. Even the stuff that's a copy, like the domination match, they threw in a little bit of extra factors. For example, there are 3 places on each map that can light up to give you the domination, and it randomly picks which one and switches through phases. So it's not just these 3 control these 3 points. It actually kind of like bobbles around. Plus, there's one map where one of the domination points is actually like floating around in a river, so it's actually moving, which, again, very interesting, very unique way to look at it, and I like that. My next excitement factor is the connectivity and control scheme of this game. I was surprised at how well this game controlled being a beta and how little lag I noticed. I did notice a little bit of it, but honestly, even the lag that I noticed didn't cost me my life and didn't screw up the fight, which is kind of amazing in a melee-based game. My next excitement factor is the social aspect of the game. It seems to be baked right into the game, and I enjoy that. They have these highlights at the end of the match that you can actually hit like buttons on for, and it just plays through on loop, in addition to your highlights and your progression. They also have this little button that's just the watch zone, and you can click on that, and you can just pick matches that are going on to just watch right then and there, which I think that's really cool. Like, I love the idea that if I don't want to play this game, but I want to watch this game, I can, and that they've got it baked right into their game to actually, like, be watchable. Like, it's not just a game so much as also a social network and also a streaming service for their own games stuff. And I think that is a brilliant and really cool idea. Again, I don't know if there's any other games doing that right now. There could be. I'm not saying there aren't. But for me, this was the first time I had experienced it. I really like it. I'm hoping that when this game does come out, that they do have a robust esports suite, and it seems to be what they're building it to, and that I can watch them all right through the game. And I gotta say, one of the things that has kept me from getting into any sort of esports is I have a hard time following it. I don't know what's playing when or who or how, and that's always kept me from getting into it. In addition to the fact that usually there is no esport for the games that I love, which bugs me. Like For Honor, there's not really a robust esports society there, but for this, they've got it like just right into the game. So I would love to see like organized tournaments that you could just go into the game and watch through this service. And I think it's a really cool idea and a really great way to do an esports, an obviously esports pointed game. My next excitement factor is the time to kill on this game. Now, time to kill, if you're an extremely casual player, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. If you're a more hardcore player who has played any sort of multiplayer PvP experience, time to kill is the average amount of time it takes someone to get killed when you are honed in on them and shooting at them. So like basically how fast the weapons soak up the health, how fast the person dies. So like PUBG, time to kill is really fast, which leads to you getting shot in the back 3 times and dying when you're not looking. That's a more realistic feel. That's what they're going for. I'm not insulting PUBG. But like Apex Legends has a much longer time to kill because they want the gunfights to be a little bit more robust even when you get the drop on somebody. So with this, the time to kill is huge, and that's great. And let me explain why. In For Honor, the time to kill is very fast. It's harder to gauge the time to kill in For Honor because it's more of a proper fighting game. You're not just wailing on somebody with a gun until they die. There are parries and blocks, so time to kills can be huge in For Honor even when they're not. But if you get a couple good hits in, you're dead. They're dead, or you're dead if they get a couple good hits in on you. With this, every character is long. There are no one-shots. It's very hard to just get murdered. That being said, we're going to talk about it again in the concerns. Don't worry. I know that Philbilly330 out there is listening and very upset right now, but I think I figured something out, and we'll talk about that in the concerns. But there is no way to one-shot in this game. I played this game from its start on Friday. I had to take some breaks because I'm a house dad, but I played a lot of hours of it. I've played every character at least one match, and there's no one-shots. There are characters that get killed faster, and there are characters that kill faster, but even the super abilities of some characters that are just doing huge amounts of damage, if you have full health, you're not getting one-shotted. Like, it's just not happening. So, okay, so let's go into the big concerns. Again, I don't want to be overtly negative. This is a beta game. I don't want to put anybody off from trying it, especially since the beta is still going on. But a game that's in beta form brings up concerns. So I want to bring up concerns in this and hope that the developers get around to either fixing it, tweaking it, or maybe say, hey, that's the way we want it, which is fine. So my first big concern, I'm going to refer to as the Philbilly330 big concern. I played this with a couple of people. One of our big fans, I don't know if he wants us to say names on the air, so I'm just going to say gamertag, Filthy Phil. He played that with me. I also played this with Philbilly330 because I wanted more point of views on it, just because it's a multiplayer PvP, and sometimes it can be really good for one person, really bad for another. And that was the case in this case. I believe Philbilly330 described it as being spit in the face by the devil and then told to go capture a point. He did not like it. It was not his kind of game. Now, overall, I just don't think the game is built for a player like Philbilly330. However, he did keep pointing out that he kept getting one-shotted. And I could not figure that out because, like I said, I could not find a one-shot. But there is an issue, and I'm going to point it out, and I think this is the problem that was happening to him. So, there are these characters that shoot from range. There's nothing like iron sights or anything like that, but you can lock onto a target and you can hit them from a good decent amount away if you're a ranged character. Well, the chaos in this game is huge. Okay, it is intimidating for anybody, even the most hardcore players, to keep track of what's going on. But to make matters work, those ranged characters can just sit kind of on the outside of it and spew their ranged attacks at a specific character, which just picks at their life. Now, the person playing that character is focused on the fight at hand, and then all of a sudden they're dead. That did happen to me a few times, but again, I had the benefit of not being killed by the person I was fighting, so I could see the kill cam was the ranged character just picking at me. There are also these like boons that one of the support characters can drop on the ground that just slowly damages you as long as you're standing in it. Now, unlike other games where you're getting hit by something you can tell by some reason, or by some way, you can't in this. There is no animation for being hit, and there shouldn't be because it would stop you from doing combos or attacks. It shouldn't be an interrupter. However, when you're getting picked at, there's no indicator for you to be that you're being picked at. And if you're fighting somebody else, there's no way for you to know to disengage to retreat. There just isn't, unless you're that good that you can totally see your health while you're fighting the guy, while you're doing these moves, while you're pressing the ability buttons, and it's a little bit too much. And this is coming from a guy who plays a lot of For Honor, so it's not like I'm not versed in, these kind of PvP experiences. I think this is kind of a concern. I think that they should have some way to notify you that you're being attacked. Maybe a directional icon somewhere on the screen, maybe a red light, something that notifies you that you're being picked at by somebody at range. And there isn't. And like I said, you could just keep getting picked at, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I also want to say, I don't necessarily think they're unbalanced yet, because I haven't had that much success with it, but the characters I had the most success with were ranged characters. So that's a little bit of a concern that the ranged characters might have more to offer than your melee characters. And again, not everybody was as bothered by this. Not everybody had such a bad experience with this. Filthy Phil really liked the game, as I did. From what I hear, Filthy Phil and Phil Billy then played with somebody else, and he really hated it. So it's kind of like across the board, who likes it, who hates it. It's just kind of like, I think it comes down to a taste thing, but he really hated it, and I felt that that's need to point out. That should be a concern. My next big concern is casuals for this game. I feel like this game is going to get away from casuals real fast, and they're going to have a hard time sticking with it. And I am usually a casual. Even when I'm the most hardcore into a game, I tend to walk away from it and come back. I have a gaming channel. I have to move from game to game. I'm sorry if this first impression video goes a little bit long, but I've been really excited about this, so I'm going to really delve in. But this game requires either heavy communication or the players to really know what they're doing. And I think that's going to cause a problem for casuals, because if you want to jump in and play, you get beat up real fast until you learn what you're doing. And I think there are a lot of other games out there that a casual will play this a couple times and go, you know what, I can play another PvP experience and have more fun at it instead of being in this ecosystem and really, really getting into it. So I don't know how to fix that. Maybe they put like a mode in for a little bit more casual play where you don't need the team as much. I'm not sure. But this one was this one's really heavy to really gonna be about the hardcore players. My next big concern is the kind of rock, scissors, paper sort of way that they look at the character class stuff. I mean, it's more complex than that, but if you're a support guy and you're up against DPS guy is probably going to kill you. If you're DPS guy up against a tank guy is probably going to beat you up for a little bit. There's kind of this weird kind of, and don't get me wrong, I've played support and I defeated DPS and tanks, definitely, but across the gambit, it makes it a little bit hard to do. Like, you can't do 1v1s in this. It's not made for it. And that's fine. I'm not upset with that. But I don't like the idea of not being able to play the character I want every time either. Because you can only have unique characters to each side. which in that way it's like Overwatch or Paladins, where you can't pick two of the same character for each side. So it kind of forces you to play other characters. And I did. I ended up with 3 characters that I really liked, and that I played repeatedly. But still, I like the idea of just playing my character, you know? Alright, I really got to wrap this up for both my voice and time concerns. But the final thing I want to talk about as a concern is some connectivity issues. Not for me. I never got kicked. I never got booted. And I don't even think it's connectivity issues. It's more or less player rage quit issues. This game is geared towards the hardcore. And if that's the way they want it, that's the way they want it. I'm not upset about that. However, even For Honor, where you can go in, beat 3 guys 3v1 if you want, has a penalty if somebody just purposely leaves a match. With this, I can't count the number of times that I went in, I was obviously playing with 2 casual people who didn't know what they were doing, they got frustrated, and they rage quit. When they rage quit, it brings us down to like 3 people, or 2 people, or even 3 people. You're not going to win anymore. You're up against 4, and like I said, it's all about team play and when to engage, and if the other team is at all sticking together, they will beat you every time. That's really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. I wish there was a way to pause until another person, and usually the person who dropped out got replaced within a couple of minutes, but by then the match is over. There was also plenty of times where I spawned into a match where the score was 40-6, and it was already over for my team even before I got in. There was a lot of other matches where the match would just start with only 2 players to a side. Even when it's on the other team, it's not fun, because then it's just the 4 of you ganking a guy to see who can get the kill shot, and that's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. So I feel like there needs to be a better structure for either punishing people for leaving early, or something along those lines. I mean, I'm gonna say I even left early because there was 2 guys on the voice channel bitching about me as a player, and I was playing probably the best on the team, and I couldn't take it anymore, and there was no penalty, so I dropped out and said screw them. And that's kind of wrong. There should be a penalty even for me. They need to have some sort of penalty for that, or they need to find some way to like pause the game until another character comes in or something, so that because it becomes immediately unfun, and these matches can sometimes take like 20 minutes. Like, that's not fun. If I get in and I've already lost 5 minutes in, it stops being fun. There's no comeback there. There's no possibility of it. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And with that, we've gone a little bit long. I'm going to close up this first impressions. This has been my first impressions video of the Bleeding Edge beta, and I think that kind of ends the beta season finally. I don't think there's any more betas on the horizon for right now, but when there is and I can get in one, you'll get one of these videos. And I just want to say thank to everybody out there for liking and subscribing. I'm going to kind of forego my usual plugs because we're running so late, but as long as I keep, and my voice is obviously failing me, but as long as you guys keep watching, I will keep making this stuff. And thanks. I'll see you guys next time.
Hand inputs activated in 10 seconds. Hand inputs activated.
Accepted.